Welcome everyone to the Get Savvy Grow Your Green Stuff series. This month we are covering Cover Your Assets in preparation for Money Smart Week, but also because we love America Saves Week, so we will get started. Um, Again, hopefully you can hear us. If you can't hear us, let us know in the chat box, and we'll get moving. So I'm Stacia Grobinstetter. I'm a consumer economics educator, and I serve Grundy, Kankakee, and Will counties. We're just right below Cook County, which is where Chicago is. And I work for the University of Illinois Extension. I've been here about 5 years. I get to do cool things like online webinars, podcasts, and other fun things inside my counties. Kendra?
Hi, everybody. Oh, yeah. Thank you, Seisha. Hi, everybody. My name is Kendra Naluvega. I am the Student Money Management Center Support Specialist at the University of Illinois. We do operate as a system through the University of Illinois system. So we do have partners at Chicago and Springfield, and also my boss, Andrea Pellegrini, is usually traveling at all three campuses, and we do a lot of amazing things with newsletters and our social media, webinars like this one. We offer Moodle courses that you can self-enroll and learn about different topics that we offer. So just let us know if you're interested in any other topics.
Great, thank you, Kendra. So we just want to know where you're logging in from today. We love when people come join us from other states. So if you let us know what state you're in, or if you're in Illinois, what county you're hanging out in, you can just use that chat box, and we'll see it come in. But obviously, I'm in Kankakee County today. Sometimes I'm in Will. Just depends on where we are. We got some Austin, Texas, Denver, Colorado. That's where Andrea is today. Turlock, California, Sangamon County, Cook County. Wonderful. So we just want to know, like I said, Waco, Texas. Heck yeah. Dr. Pepper Museum. You're like, no, that's not only, that's the only thing we're known for, but great places. So thank you everyone for participating in the chat. Like I said, we're going to be using that chat box a lot. So if you don't know where it is, familiarize yourself with it right now. If we can go forward, so we're going to be talking more about so America Saves is over, but we are working with the University of Illinois and the UI Saves campaign. So if you're interested in being involved with the America Saves campaign, still going on till April 1st, so just a few more days. University of Illinois students or employees can go on to universityillinoissaves.org. That should be popping up in the chat box. But America Saves is great for everybody. So even if you're in a different state, please just check it out and learn more about America Saves. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about what we're going to learn today with our objectives. So our learning objectives of, why is insurance important? We're going to talk a lot about that. How does risk impact a financial plan? That's important to know about as well. What types of insurance can I purchase? And then we're going to talk about which financial terms should I understand, because there are lots of terms. We call it financial jargon. So these are the kind of the objectives that we're going for today. So I'm going to turn it over to Kendra, and she's going to talk more about some of the, I have one more slide, so sorry. So we always like to bring in research. We love to give you guys more information. So there was a 2011 survey conducted by the National Association of Insurance Commissioners, and that they've revealed that only 45% of the participants, 1,000 participants, felt confident enough in their insurance decisions. So just something to be aware of, that a lot of people don't feel confident in their purchases of their insurance. And I'm going to switch over to Kendra to get started.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Seisha. I'm going to move on to the next slide that says insurance basics, just to kind of give you guys a definition before we start to dive deep into the basics of insurance. So if you were to look this up in the Merriam-Webster dictionary, it's going to say that insurance is coverage by contract whereby one party undertakes to indemnify or guarantee another against loss by a specified contingency or peril. Now, this sounds like a lot of words, and it might not be easy to understand, but basically the summary is it protects you against risk of the unknown. For the next slide. So Insurance is there to help you when you cannot personally afford a risk, whether that be your vehicle, your home, your health, or life insurance. So these are the main types of insurance that we'll be talking about today. We know that you're all working hard to build a solid foundation footing for yourself and your family. Accidents and disasters do happen, and if you don't have a safety net, it could leave you in a financial ruin. Having the right insurance can help you protect your life and your ability to earn income, help you keep a roof over your head, and also help you protect assets that you've worked so hard to accumulate. And we're going to talk in the next slide a little bit about risk insurance and as a risk management. We do have partners over from Extensions that have this for risk management things that I'm going to explain a little bit, but you can use insurance as a risk management to help you identify and eliminate acceptable risks. For example, you could bear the risk. This is also known as retaining or assuming the risk. You bear the financial burden and do not actively seek to reduce the likelihood of the event or its financial severity. And for example, you could drop the collision insurance on your 10-year-old car or continue to drive it regularly. And for transferring the risk, this is like when you arrange for someone else to bear the financial responsibility for the event. Surety bonds, hold harmless agreements, and ensure all ways of transferring the risk. An example of this is you could buy collision insurance on your car so that the insurance company bears the risk of having to replace or repair your car. You could also look at reducing or controlling the risk. This way you reduce the likelihood of an event, or you take actions that would reduce financial loss if the event occurred. For example, you could wear your seatbelt. Hopefully everybody wear their seatbelts all the time. So this is a great way to reduce risk management. You can also reduce your injury in the event of an accident by not speeding. So that reduces likelihood of accidents, as I'm sure you guys have been driving one day and you saw stop speeding, or seeing like different signs on the road that tell you to reduce your speed. So there are a lot of other reminders, but it's always nice to keep in mind that reducing the risk can help you in such a long way. And these are things that you can actively do while you're driving to do that. And then we can also talk about removing the risk. This is you go beyond reducing or controlling the risk and avoid it entirely. And an example is you could sell your car and use public transportation. Now, this kind of depends on the public transportation you have in your community. Some people in Chicago might say it's really easy to kind of maneuver around because public transportation is really good over there. And I know in Champaign we have really good public transportation. So if that's an option in your community, you could also always consider that. And next slide. So the next slide over talks about why do we need insurance. These are a few points, and I'm sure you can think of a lot of other things, but the main things is protects us from big bad accidents. It protects us from using our emergency funds, and also protects us from losing tons of money, getting sued, wages being garnished, and lots of other things that we could talk about. So we're going to go over to the next slide and talk more about auto insurance first. This is the first one we're going to cover. And what is it? If you've owned a vehicle before, you might have heard about auto insurance before, or you just, if you've been reading about insurance and shopping around, or are just interested in insurance, you probably know about this. But basically, it just provides financial protection from loss due to an accident or other damage to a car, truck, van, or SUV. As a vehicle owner in Illinois, you are required to have car insurance. I'm not sure about other states, but you can always look to see what the laws are in your state specifically. But you must always carry your insurance card in your vehicle and show it upon request by law enforcement officers. Your insurance company will send you an insurance card, usually when your insurance policy is issued or renewed. And next slide over. So that's just in Illinois, like we talked in the first slide, but we're going to go through different questions just to kind of get an inventory of what people have been doing while driving, just to kind of get you thinking about your habits in driving and how you can reestablish those while you're driving, or just rethink about how you drive. And so the first question is, have you ever talked with passengers in your vehicle while driving? And you can put this in the chat if you feel comfortable answering. And if you don't, that's fine. You can just think about it. Okay, I see some yeses already. Always chatting. Okay, well, that's, thank you guys for sharing that. And the next slide over is another question that we have for you guys. We have about 3 of these inventory questions. Have you ever played the radio or music while driving? Yeses. Okay, yeah, I've done that too. And who doesn't listen to music? Good question. I've done that as well. Um, the next question is, have you eaten while driving? I know I've eaten sometimes when I'm not driving for sure, but drive-throughs are a huge thing in our country. So you're going to find lots of people, or maybe not even majority, but people might like to get food while on the way going to work, or sometimes it's just convenient to kind of grab something while you're driving. So this is popular almost every day. Very popular answers already. And the last question, though, this is very big. Have you ever used a cell phone while driving? Now, all of these are big, but this is one that we see a lot in like insurance policies, and a lot of people talk about cell phones while driving. Yes, a lot of answers. Yes, but hands-free. Okay. Well, thank you guys so much for participating and answering these questions, because I have some interesting statistics to talk about from the National Highway Safety Traffic Administration. So 81% of drivers talk with other passengers when they're driving. 66% play with music. 29% eat or drink, under that 29%, and 25% use a cell phone. Now, these are very interesting facts, and uninsured motorists create huge financial problems when they're involved in accidents. Driving without insurance or ability to pay for damages caused in an accident puts you and others at risk. So this is something to think about, and these habits, and sometimes when they can be dangerous, or how you can be aware of what you're doing when you're driving, because this can go high into, if an accident is caused, you could possibly make changes to your policies, or make changes to how much you're going to be paying because you weren't taking safety measures during an accident, when an accident occurred, and other complications that can happen with that. Now for the next slide, I'm going to move it over to Seisha. She's going to talk about basics of auto insurance.
Okay, well, we're going to talk a little bit about auto insurance, some of the basics.
Actually,
I was like, I think it's still you, Kendra.
I think it's still me. I thought it was a new
No,
slide.
it's okay. Don't worry about it. You're fine.
Awesome. Yes, I'm going to continue talking about auto insurance before I turn it over to Seisha. So this is for over the next slide, I'm going to kind of talk about if you're looking to get insurance covered, what full coverage is, and the other different combinations that you can think about. So full coverage is a combination of each of these different insurance coverages, such as liability, collision, and comprehensive. Liability protects you and another person if you're driving, who's driving your car with permission, if you're injured or you kill someone or damage property. Collision covers damage on your own vehicle in an accident if the accident is your fault, even if the accident is your fault. For comprehension, this covers losses with other collision and with other than collision. So for example, fire damages, break-ins, vandalism, theft, and natural disasters. And the deductible is basically the amount of insurance claim that you must pay before the insurance company pays the balance. And we're going to cover types of coverages with different deductibles in this slide. It is important to know the differences in your coverage, as your deductibles could be different based on how often the instances occur. For collision, if your car collides with another car, another tree, if it collides with a tree or other objects. And for comprehensive, this is when it covers everything. So if you have contact with birds, deers, other animals, if you have fires, theft, or windstorm. And I have a quick question for discussion, and please feel free to share in the chat if you're comfortable doing that. How much is your deductible? And while keeping that in mind, how might the cost of your deductible impact your insurance rates? Okay, I see a couple of different answers in the chat. Lowest rates for you. Okay, and 500. Okay. Thank you guys for sharing. So it's really interesting when you think about this, because over the next slide, it talks about the different minimums in different states. So in the next slide, it shows the state of Illinois. Um, you're in compliance with the mandatory insurance law if you have a vehicle liability insurance in the following amounts. For per person is 25K, and 50K per accident, then 20K per property damage. Now, excuse me, this might be different in different uh, states, as we saw, like some of our participants today are coming from Texas and other states. So if you guys are interested to kind of look at what your state minimums are, and also ask yourself, like we're going to be discussing in the next question, what does that mean for you, like in the minimum? Should you carry more than the minimum? Why or why not? And why it's important to have those discussions. We'll be kind of, if you're comfortable sharing in the chat, go ahead and just kind of think about why or why not should you carry more than the minimum. We have a scenario that we can cover in the next slide to kind of talk about the importance of minimums, or not carrying over and having a little bit more in payment than just using the minimum. Somebody said they commute, so they can carry more than a minimum. Okay, thanks for sharing that. Anybody else have other ideas? They sure. Very good point. Yes. Yeah, it changes to when you have family and you have to take into consideration of your family. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, now that kind of guides us into the discussion of this this next example here. So in the state of is the state of Illinois minimum enough? So for example, you are driving to work, and on your way to get into an accident with a Bugatti that's worth 2.8 million. Do you think your minimum car insurance will cover the damage? And what happens if you don't have enough coverage? So we know this might be an extreme example, but accidents do happen, and this is a possibility of something happening. So it just kind of gets you thinking of what's worth paying and what you can afford, and how you can find at least different options that work for you and your family, if you do have family. And kind of, okay, somebody said in the chat, yes, mine would be covered. Awesome. Yeah, so there's a lot of different ways to think about this, and just see how it plays out in your life. And all in all, I think the last slide, it's still kind of just the same slide, but I just wanted to end at this note to kind of have you guys think about minimums in your state, and kind of see how that plays out with your insurance that you either currently have, or if you're shopping around to see what the best options are. And I'm going to move it over to Seisha for the renter's insurance.
Thanks, Kendra. So next we're going to dive into renter's insurance. So we covered all about car insurance. And Kendra made a good point. If you do live in a different state and you're checking out our webinar, definitely make sure what your minimums are. So in the chat box, I put Texas and California. So if you're from someplace else and I didn't put it in there, please let me know. I'll be more than happy to get that for you before the end of today. But knowing the minimums are important, but we're going to dive right into renter's insurance. So really, what is renter's insurance? Renter's insurance is a type of insurance that is property insurance that covers individuals who don't own the home they're living in. So it covers three things. It covers your personal belongings. So that can be from your old vintage record collection to socks, underwear, and jewelry, or computers. There's the personal liability, which we'll talk about more in a minute, and then temporary living expenses. So in the case where maybe you have a fire and you can't live in your apartment, so that's something to definitely be aware of. If you are a student or you work a lot with students, you want to maybe have them double check if their parents' home insurance covers their personal property in a dorm versus an apartment. And especially if they're over 18 years old, some policies do cover personal properties in dorms and even apartments, but not all. So just something, again, if you are a student or if you work a lot with students, this is something to be aware of. So what does next slide, please. So what does it all cover? So when you're looking at renter's insurance, of course, that we have damage, so to personal property, like I said, so like a fire, if there's wind, lightning, and damage from an aircraft or automobile. I have seen in the past where cars go straight into apartments, complexes. It's kind of scary. And then, of course, there's the personal liability. So in the event that someone got an injury in your home, it would help pay for the costs of their care. I remember a story a few years ago when there were a bunch of students on like the second story balcony of an apartment complex, and there were too many people on it, and it fell, and a lot of people were really hurt and injured. And so this is when the personal liability of your policy would kick in. So just something to be aware of. And of course, there is accidental damage to the properties of others in your care. So of course, like we want to take care of the other people if they are at your house and something does happen, or your apartment and something does happen. And then of course, the living expenses. So if you're forced to live someplace else, like you can, be in maybe a different apartment or maybe in a hotel or motel until everything is fixed. So that's something that's really important. There is also a story of a girl whose apartment flooded due to someone upstairs not turning their water off. And so while she was showering, her ceiling started to fall into the shower, which is so crazy. So the insurance paid to have her live somewhere else while the apartment complex fixed it. So some good things to be aware of. There are also some other things to consider when we're talking about renter's insurance. So if we can go to the next slide. We definitely want to talk about the dollar amount of coverage, the deductible. Again, we're going to talk about these in a second. The actual cash value or replacement cost, the location, and the claim history. So these are some verbiage, some jargon that if you're not familiar with, you should be when we're talking about things to consider. And some other things you should think about is, renter's insurance may be higher, like if you're living in Chicago versus renter's insurance in like Bloomington or Urbana-Champaign, or even where I live here in Kankakee County. Insurance is about protecting your risk, and obviously living in Chicago versus maybe living in Urbana or even, further south, those obviously have different they have different risks. So just something to be aware of. Also, if you've ever filed a renter's insurance claim before, so let's say you live in an apartment and your ceiling collapsed while you're taking the shower, this is going to impact that before, so the premium or the amount that you pay could potentially be higher. So moving forward, we're definitely going to talk about the dollar amount of coverage. The most important factor to consider when purchasing renter's insurance is the dollar amount of coverage. Coverage is not placed on individual items, it's on your possessions as a whole. So one thing we always talk about in the event like of a total loss, like a fire, is think about how much it would cost to replace all of your personal possessions, like everything, like down to if you're male, boxers, but if you're female, like bras and underwear, those kind of things. Like those things can get very expensive when we start thinking about how much we have to actually replace. So definitely something to be considered of. But of course, other things like besides clothing, we have things like laptops, iPads, Apple Watches, TVs, microwaves. Specifically for men, things like cologne and other gadgets that you like to have. And then for us ladies, things like makeup and definitely jewelry. So one tip that we have for you guys is that you can take photos of your apartment and put them on like a cloud-based system like Dropbox, Box, Google Photos, whatever works best for you. And in the event that you need to prove what you have, you can also save receipts for bigger items like TVs, jewelry, and computers. You can also carry, that personal property on the coverage as well. There's usually an extra fee, and you can say, I need to have this ring, this engagement ring, placed on my insurance. How do I take care of that? And your insurance agent will help you with that. I should also say, okay, so like I said, there is a separate policy for high dollar items, like I said, like that engagement ring or guns or anything like that you think is of large value. You should definitely get that as a separate policy on those. So moving forward, when we're talking about deductibles, Next slide, please. Thank you. When we're talking about deductibles, like this is the amount that you're going to pay out of pocket before the insurance will start to help with costs. So when we asked the deductible question earlier about with the cars, like we kind of know what that is, but this also applies to renter's insurance. So you're going to have to pay that $200, $250, $500, $1,000, whatever that money is before your claim can be taken care of. So this again belongs to when you use the deductible, it's usually for personal belongings or temporary living expenses. So deductibles for renter's insurance again can be as low as $250, but as high as $1,000 or more. It just depends on what you feel comfortable with. Obviously, the higher the deductible amount, the lower the cost is for you monthly. So we call that the premium. That's how much you pay. So again, if it's like $1,000, you might be paying like, if it's the deductible is $1,000, you might be paying like $20 a month. But if your deductible like $250, you might be paying more like $60 or $70 a month. It's just whatever you feel is better in your price range and what your emergency fund looks like. Next slide, please. So we're going to talk about another jargon term. These are two that you will be asked about when you are looking for renter's insurance. There's what's called actual cash value and replacement cost. So I used to be an insurance agent, and there's obviously a difference here when we're talking about. So actual cash value is the replacement cost minus the depreciation. So let's say I had a TV I bought brand new in 2019, and a year later my house gets broken into and my apartment and my TV gets taken. Well, I as the insurance company will only give you back as much as it was minus the use of it. So actual cash value is one way. It's I think personally that this actual cash value is not the best choice for your funds, but this is if this is all you can afford, this is what is good. So replacement cost is in the event of a total loss of the asset, they will give you an equal value price. So like let's say again I lose that TV in 2019, they're gonna and next year my TV gets stolen, they're gonna give me a brand new TV, $20, and they're not gonna take that depreciation into account. So those are just some jargon terms you should be aware of. So you definitely want to have the replacement cost when we're talking about insurance. Next slide, please. So again, location is a large factor in how much the renter's insurance will cost. Like we talked about with living in Chicago versus living in Urbana. For those of you that don't live here, obviously you figure Chicago is a bigger city. We have there's some crime up there sometimes. So it's definitely going to depend on where you live. I mean, it could even be different street by street. So it's just something to know. So location is a big factor when it comes to the cost of your insurance. And then, of course, like we talked about previous claims, if you are that person who's they were in the shower when the ceiling started to collapse, like they're going to have a claim. Obviously, the more claims you have, the higher your the higher your monthly payment is going to be. So just some things to be aware of. So when we're talking, next slide, please. When we're talking about purchasing renter's insurance, you definitely want to shop around. There are lots of insurance companies out there, and there are, I would say at least 3 to 4. As you know, there are tons out there, but at least get 3 to 4 quotes. And don't necessarily go with the first one that you call, because that's what a lot of people do. You want to see how they view risk differently, and of course see what the premiums are to the policy. Just because it's the cheapest doesn't mean that it's necessarily the best for you. Of course, you can bundle and save. So if you're looking for renter's insurance and auto, you know, they may give you a discount or a small discount. And so you can save more money that way. Of course, you want to keep your receipts. So if something does happen where you do have a claim on that TV or that jewelry, like we talked about, you can prove how much it was. And, you know, you can keep that receipt like on a cloud-based system so it's not in the house and it won't burn up or get ruined with water or whatever it may be. And lastly, we really do tell you guys, I think this is an important piece here, videotape your rented space. It's a good idea to walk through your home and see how, take pictures or even talk about what these things are out loud. That way, if something is lost or stolen or ruined, whether it's fire, water, or anything else, you can show that, hey, I did have this item and I do need to get this replaced. So, great things about renter's insurance. Next up, we're going to talk quickly about life insurance. We do think that this is an important piece. We do realize that students are young adults, and so you get to make the choices. But I will say that life insurance, if you feel like it's a necessity for you, maybe you have small children, maybe you're a graduate student just looking to, take care of some things if something were to happen. And what I mean is, if you were to pass away, this is a great way to get that started. So let's talk about a little bit life insurance. So there is life insurance is a type of insurance that pays out to a beneficiary when you die. So you might have life insurance right now already. Maybe you have it with work. Maybe you're looking for it when work does happen. But you definitely want to make sure that you have a beneficiary who is living to take care of, to receive the funds after you pass. I would tell you that if you have small children, you can't really you can make the children beneficiaries of your account, but it makes it a little harder because they are underage. So just something to be aware of when you're talking about life insurance. But the one thing I want to stress here is if you think that you need life insurance, I would tell you, see what the costs are. But we're going to talk about kind of like the two different types of insurance. But I will say that insurability, you'll never be younger than you are today, and insurability is an important factor when it comes to life insurance, because obviously the older you are, you you might acquire a life-threatening illness or life-limiting illness. You never know when cancer might pop up. And I give you this example because it's my family. My brother-in-law was 23 when he had cancer, and literally like probably like 6 months before this they got life insurance for him, and because of the type of cancer he had and how it was, like, he really couldn't get life insurance for a long time after that. Now he's in his 50s. So it's just something to be aware of. Again, insurability is an important factor when it comes to life insurance. So if we could talk a little bit more about the kind of like the different terms of life insurance. So there are two types that we talk about. These are kind of like the simplistic terms of life insurance. So I just want to talk about um, the differences. So whole life insurance, as long as you pay the premium, so your monthly amount, every 6-month amount, whatever your yearly amount, this insurance will follow you for your whole life. Premiums typically stay the same, so like they might be $100 for the rest of your life. But these typically stay the same. So if you purchase it later in life, the higher the premium is going to be. So like I said earlier, you're never going to be younger than you are today. So it's just something to be aware of, that, the prices when you're younger, it's going to be a lot cheaper than 20 years down the road. So term life insurance, can we go back, please? So term life insurance is typically for a certain period of time when you may need extra insurance. So you buy term insurance, purchase when you might have like a big expense, like a house or have a baby. Premiums are a lot lower than whole life, but they can increase depending on the policy. So you might only have it, so it's only for a term. It's only for like 10 years, 20 years, 25 years. And then once, that term is up, that 25 years, it goes away. A lot of people have mixed feelings when it comes to term life insurance, and that's okay. But just know that you're purchasing that in the event that something does happen, that you do die, and that you have to think about it as a loss of income for your family, for your spouse or your significant other, your partner, whoever that may be. Like, you are now gone and they no longer have that income, and so it's just, think of it as an income replacement almost. That's not the great way to do it, but it's just something to consider. So, why is purchasing life insurance important? Does anyone want? If you can answer in the chat box if you want to, or have any of you purchased life insurance? I can tell you that I have. I have life insurance. I also have life insurance through work. So I know how much I have in the event that I die. And the chat is very quiet. Anybody? I think you have life insurance. Good, that's great. So I think purchasing life insurance again for that insurability. Um, some people say they have it through work. That's great. It's important to have if this is something you want. Yeah, it protects the family. You can get a great price through your employer. That's a great piece of that. Um, I think these are all great answers. I just think again, the insurability and then protecting your family. Those are the two reasons, because there are big bad things that do happen. So the next slide, please. So we talked about like a little bit why insurance is important. Children may rely on you for their care, so that's one piece of it. Again, others may rely on you for it financially, whether it's your spouse or your life partner, whoever it may be. Funerals can be really expensive, actually. I recently had to help pay for two burials, and they were very expensive. And burials can run anywhere between $6,000 up to $20,000. They can be very expensive. So this could be a way that you can help supplement that, after they're gone. And then of course, um, co-signers on any debt are required to repay that. I think that's an important thing to note. So if you have a student loan with your parents on it and you pass away, your parents are now responsible for that student loan debt. And I know people who have experienced this because they've had a child pass and had to acquire that debt because they were the co-signer on it. So just something to be mindful of. So of course, we talk about insurance. You can also self-insure, which is basically what it sounds like. You bear the risk and you set the money aside to deal with that anticipated financial loss. Um, the reason why people buy insurance is because they typically don't have that large amount of cash just kind of sitting around, but you can self-insure and you can put it away for your family in the event that it does happen. This could be a better way to pay for things like a funeral if the money is set aside for those kinds of things. Just something that you should know about is self-insurance, and it is what it is. It's what it sounds like. You are doing it for you to set aside in the event that something does happen. So as we kind of wrap up today, we just want to remind you that insurance helps you manage financial risks. So the reason we buy insurance is because the risk is too large for us to personally take care of, whether it's auto, renters, or even life insurance. Like we personally cannot, if you were to buy $1 million policy for life insurance, like you don't have that funds, so that's why you purchase the policy to take care of your loved ones after you're gone. Auto insurance is required in the state of Illinois, something we all have to take care of. And if you're caught without insurance, you will get in big trouble. Renter's insurance, of course, covers your belongings, as well as any kind of personal, if someone gets hurt on your property, and then we'll also do temporary living expenses if you have to be someplace else. Of course, we talked about life insurance that pays out to a beneficiary if you were to pass early. And then, of course, we want you definitely to pay attention to deductibles, like how much is the deductible, because, that can change a lot about how much you're paying per month. And then, of course, bundling helps you save, and then you definitely want to shop around. I recently had a colleague, I had wrote a blog post about shopping around for car insurance, and she realized that she hadn't done it in a few years, and then she went to go shop around, and she actually saved quite a bit of money just by switching insurances. So just something, to keep in mind when you are looking at insurance. So we also have the financial literacy badges program. So if you're looking to, have the badges program on your resume, on your website, on your LinkedIn, you could take a step towards the Protect badge. You can go online and take the quiz. We do this. This is a badge eligible event, of course, and we do the Open Badges program. We use the open platform open badges platform from Mozilla to award digital badges that can be displayed on social media sites. Yes, and they enhance your online portfolio by providing verifiable recognition for the activities you completed. So if you're interested in learning more about it, you can go down to the last link, the FL badges, the go.uillinois.edu. But if you want to take the quiz for today, you can go to go.illinois.edu/cover your assets quiz, and that should be in the chat box. So we also have another webinar coming up next month. We're going to be covering student loan repayment. Andrea and I are going to be talking about that one, and we're super excited because we just learned some new information, and we can't wait to get that out to everybody because we had a tax change for 2018, and so that means a lot of things in student loan repayment have changed as well. But we'd love for you to stay in contact with us. We love hearing from you guys. So whether it's on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, we always record these webinars, and they are living on YouTube. Please check us out and stay in contact with us. So I don't have anything else for you, Kendra or Andrea. I don't know if you want to chime in, but that's all I've got.
We had some questions in the chat that I wanted to get your feedback on. Someone wanted to know if we were going to cover anything related to mortgage insurance, personal liability insurance, and homeowners insurance.
No, not today, but I mean, we can talk a little bit about them.
Yeah, I told them that we could probably cover any specific questions. So if anybody has specific questions on those, let us know. If we can't answer them today, we can always follow up in an email.
And I will tell you that every state for homeowners insurance is different. So I used to live in Texas, actually, and homeowners insurance is very different than it is in Illinois, as well as I used to live in Missouri, too. So I don't know about specifics, but we could talk in generalities. So I was like, is there questions? Or if they have questions and they want to email us, we are more than happy to answer that way as well.
Absolutely. For anyone that's wondering what the difference is between homeowners insurance and mortgage insurance is also called PMI when you get a mortgage, and it protects the lender in case something happens to you. It's not really for you, it's really for the mortgage company. So homeowners insurance is more similar to renter's insurance in that it covers your belongings, but it also covers your property and any liability related to something that would happen on your property.
That's great. Great, Andrea. Like a very quick answer. I like it.
I'm just looking through and seeing if anybody sent me anything specific before we log off. And if you guys feel like you have other things to do, you don't have any other questions right now, feel free to log off. We're not going to keep you from lunch if you're missing out on lunch, but we will stick around and answer any questions that anybody does have.
So Denise asks, are there any tips for how to estimate how much insurance you need to cover fixtures in an older home? So the way that homeowners insurance is calculated is it's based off how much your home is worth if it had to be completely rebuilt from the ground up. And then a portion of that amount is how much is given to the property inside, the personal property. And it can change from state to state. But if you're looking for something, if you're wanting a certain fixture, let's say you have an antique German cuckoo clock, I don't know, I'm just giving you an example, and it's been in the family for a long time, you may want to get it appraised by someone who is familiar with cuckoo clocks, and then put that on as a rider on your policy that you actually pay an extra little bit of insurance for.
I'm not sure if you covered this when you were talking about renter's insurance, but sometimes renter's insurance can be bundled with a parent's homeowner's insurance as a rider. Sometimes. It depends on.
Oh, no, I didn't know that. No.
Yeah. And so I've only heard a couple cases of it.
Yeah. That's a good question, Denise. Does that answer that? Did I answer that for you? But I would say that, most of the time, homeowners insurance. Okay, great. Awesome. I mean, and that's how it works in most places. So, but hopefully you don't have a German antique cuckoo clock, because finding someone to appraise that might be really difficult. Are there any other questions?
Kendra, did you get any private questions that we need to address?
Not at all. I was just going through it up and down to see if I had any, but no, just about that link. And I think you had already responded to that. So,
Yeah, I apologize if any of the links are a little messed up. We've had technical issues, so trying to copy from my iPhone to to the chat has been a challenge. But we do put all of the links in our course that we put together. So,
we do have a question. Is it mandatory to have mortgage insurance in Illinois? Any answers?
I want to say yes.
So if for private mortgage insurance, if you owe more than if you owe 80% or more of the value of your home on a mortgage, you are required to have PMI from the lender, at least in everywhere in Illinois that I'm aware of. I don't think it's a state thing. It's a
It's more of a lender thing.
it's a lender standard. Because I tried to get out of it, and I know that I've had friends that their lenders were willing to do creative things in order for their client to avoid paying PMI, but not every lender is, especially if it's your first mortgage.
And to be quite honest, you know, it's really hard to self-insure. If we're talking about homeowners insurance, it's really hard to self-insure for your dwelling, you know, because homes cost a lot. So that's the reason why we have insurance, is we pay a smaller amount because the amount of risk is low, but if something does happen, it's a high cost to like us. That's why we have insurance. But hopefully that answers your question, Rhonda.
It is also harder to estimate how much your liability would be if someone would like fall down your stairs.
Yep. Or get hurt on your property. Yes, you can. Yes, you can have PMI go away after under 80%. But you should also check with your primary mortgage insurance company to make sure like that they don't have a different standard. Because my understanding is if you have paid in principal 20%, you know, you can get that insurance removed. Right, Andrea?
Most of the time, yes. You do need to stay on top of your lender. You can't just assume that they're going to take off the PMI. So like for me, I wanted to avoid paying as much PMI as possible. So I had as much of a down payment as I could afford, which was only like, I think 15%. And then they told me the date that my PMI should drop off if I make payments on time. And so I put that in my calendar and made sure to follow up with them on that date so that they would drop the PMI, because I didn't want them to charge me 3 more months versus for PMI because I had already paid what was required. And you can avoid PMI completely if you have at least 20% down payment of the value of your home.
Yes.
So we'll stick around for a couple more minutes and then we'll log off so everybody can eat lunch. I haven't had lunch yet. Stacia, have you had lunch?
I'm eating as we speak. I got delivered the monocles earlier.
Oh, the
Kendra
monocles.
was talking, and I was like, yes.
Got to cram as many things in, do as much multitasking as possible.
What's life?
Yep. All right. If nobody has any more questions, we will be logging off. If you do have a question later that you think of, you can email studentmoney@uillinois.edu. We will make this recording available probably sometime next week, and we'll send it out to everyone that's been registered for this webinar. And it will also go on YouTube, so you can keep an eye on YouTube or subscribe to our YouTube channel to check that out. We're also on all kinds of social media, both Extension and SMMC and our partners in North Park University, as well as Columbia College Chicago. So we'll include contact information in our follow-up email as well, since I'm having issues with my copy and paste right now. so I can't put it in the chat. But thank you all for joining us today and taking a little time out of your day to talk to us about insurance.
Thank you guys.